Well, mention Area 51 and immediately stories of UFO sightings, top secret government labs, of course, maybe little green men spring into your mind. And now investigative journalist Annie Jacobsen has finally found a way to try to break through some of the secrecy and says that truth is actually stranger than fiction. She spoke with former scientists, engineers, pilots, interviewed all of them who worked and lived at Area 51 in order to publish this book, Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. And it's a pleasure to welcome you. Basically, your premise is that all the UFO talk, if anything, is just a cover for what's really going on. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, I interviewed 74 people who had rare access to Area 51 for my book. 32 of them lived and worked at the base for extended periods of time. And I learned about all kinds of incredible programs at Area 51, which was essentially set up in the 1950s to push science and technology faster than any nation in the world, specifically the Soviets. And that is what we did out there. And of course, the CIA was there, the Department of Defense. And yes, my book does speak to the myth of the little green men and the flying saucers.
And so what is it that your book reveals about what was happening there that might in some ways be more disturbing than whether there's a spaceship over there?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of things that were going on at Area 51. One of the first things that I was surprised to learn about the base that was not part of the mythology of Area 51 as we know it today was the fact that it is situated right next door to what is called the Nevada Test Site, which is where, beginning in 1950, President Truman authorized a nuclear weapons test. So we had over 100 nuclear explosions, mushroom clouds and all, out there in the desert. And what that did is it allowed for a system of secret keeping under the rubric of the Atomic Energy Commission, now called the Department of Energy. So you had the Atomic Energy working on nuclear tests on one side of the fence, and then you had the CIA working on espionage, and the Department of Defense working on these advanced warfighting systems. And they've all kind of come around full circle. Today, of course, at Area 51, the drones are flown, which are fighting the war on terror.
Are you saying the drones that we're using in the Middle East were and still are cultivated out of Area 51?
Yes, and that is speculative on the part of sources I use because those programs are all still highly classified. The programs that I write about at great length in my book are from the 50s and the 60s. One of them I write about was this incredible Mach 3 spy plane that was called the A-12 Oxcart, which the CIA developed out there. Now, this still holds records for piloted speed, even though it was being built 40 years ago. That was just declassified by the CIA in 2007. I interview pilots who flew that, the physicists who invented stealth technology for the CIA in my book. So you can imagine what must be going on there now, 50 years later, with these drones that are still classified. We know about the Predator and the Reaper, of course, but there's so many others that are being built out there that we don't yet know about.
And what do you hope to accomplish with this book? In other words, what should the general public understand about what our tax dollars and our government is doing in Area 51, and what would you like them to take away?
Well, there's a lot that I write about that really speaks to, I think, what is one of the most important issues in America today, and that is this idea, and this goes back to, 200 years in our nation's history. What exactly really needs to be kept secret for reasons of national security, and what, in fact, the public has the right to know about? And I write about a number of programs in my book, secret programs that were extraordinarily reckless. One of them that I write about was a dirty bomb that was set off on the edges of Area 51 in 1957. It was called Project 57. I tell it through the eyes of a security guard named Richard Mingus, who worked out there and stood guard over that. It was a plutonium dispersal test, and as we know, plutonium has a half-life of 24,000 years. The land was contaminated out there and still is. You really have to ask yourself, now that was done as a quote-unquote safety test, but you have to ask yourself, how safe is it to contaminate a portion of land with plutonium for 24,000 years?
I would think without any nuclear expertise, not that safe. Annie, it's a real pleasure. The book, Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Military Base. Check it out and enjoy your summer, Annie. Thank you and congratulations on the book.
Thank you for having me.